Hello, welcome to this module, which is the third foundation, niching. Now, this really is my most favorite module. It's my big thing. I love niching, absolutely essential, essential, essential. And I get very excited about it. So I'm just going to warn you that I get very excited about it before we get going. So in this module, we are going to get into the nitty-gritty of marketing. But first, I want to just say this, because in the next 4 modules, including this one, those 4 modules are really interlinked, and I'm going to show you a diagram in just a second. And they're dependent on each other. In fact, I'll show you that diagram right now. Yeah, so these are the parts that are really interlinked and, dependent on each other. And it's really important that you understand that they are a little bit chicken and egg. So over these next 4 modules, we're going to develop your niche, your client, your story, and your message. And really, it is likely that you'll want to kind of cycle round it a few times before everything becomes clear. So the first thing I am going to do is give you a working definition of marketing. And that is reaching the people who need you in a way that makes them want to choose you. So let's break that down. It's really simple, but let's break it down. So reaching the people who need you. Well, yes, you have to be able to identify a group of people with a need so that you can get your message to them in a way that makes them want to choose you. So we've already discussed the fact that there's more and more and more competition for clients as more and more therapists are qualified. Now, I don't want to get into some kind of scarcity mindset because that's not helpful to anyone. And there are certainly enough clients for everyone. But more competition means you need to stand out. And you need to stand out in a way that makes your potential client stop shopping. In other words, they stop, they're shopping for therapy and you need to make them stop and choose you. So in order to stop somebody from shopping for their therapy, they need to notice you. They need to get the message that you understand them. This is so important. They need to get the message that you understand them and that you can help them. So let's just look at some of the common mistakes. And I wonder if you're making these. There's plenty of mistakes that we all make in marketing, but these are the common ones that we see with therapists. So firstly, that you try to appeal to everyone. And of course, when you do your training, you are trained in a process that, it can be applied to all sorts of conditions and you can pretty much treat anyone. And the problem is that so can everyone else. And if you try to appeal to everyone, you appeal to no one and everyone looks the same. So how do clients choose? What is going to set you apart from others? So that's the first mistake, trying to appeal to everyone. The next mistake is talking about yourself and your qualifications or your process. Now, when you look, after you've done this module, when you look at a therapy directory with fresh eyes, you will be amazed. Let me ask you this. What does the potential client actually care about most when they decide to search for help? Do they care about you and your qualifications, or do they care about the pain they're in? Well, of course, they care about the pain they're in. Now, do they care about the fact that you understand them, or that you are, for example, an integrative counsellor? One of the most common things that we see on therapists' website is a lot of I language. I specialise in this, I do this, I do this, I do that. I've qualified in this, and a list of qualifications and, specialisms, a long list of specialisms, thereby not specialising, in my opinion. And it makes it really hard for your prospect to choose because, of course, you know, your clients, these are the things you have to remember. Your clients don't have the expertise that you have. They don't have the jargon that you have, and they probably have no idea about different types of therapy. You know, sometimes it looks like therapists on therapy directories are just actually trying to play top trumps with each other rather than actually attract clients. I realise that might be controversial, but that's what it looks like. You know, and your clients have a problem that needs solving. And at that moment in time, when they do decide to search for help, which is a massive thing, you know, when they suddenly go, oh my God, I really need help now. They are interested in themselves, not the therapist's qualifications. And they just want to get rid of whatever problem they have in order, you know, to do that. They're searching for someone who they really understands what they've got. Because, of course, remember that we all, when we've got a problem, we all think we're probably the only person who has it. And, of course, you know differently, but they don't. So the point is, it is incredibly difficult to choose and it's confusing and everyone looks the same. So what happens when everyone looks the same? We choose by price, and you will notice that that when you look down a directory, you will notice that everybody charges pretty much the same amount of money. And then, of course, you've become a commodity, which is really not a good idea. So that's also why we niche, because we want to make it easy for your clients to stop shopping and choose you. So the niching, your why, your ideal client, your story, and your message, they are all dependent on each other. Remember how I said earlier that the client needs to feel that you understand them and that you can describe how they're feeling, and that they feel confident in you. Of course, I've just said all those things. They are much easier to convey in your message if you niche. So, what exactly is a niche? Because I realise that is jargon, marketing jargon. So a niche is essentially a specialism in the type of clients or the type of issues that you treat. It is not specializing in a type of therapy. So for example, psychotherapy is not a niche, and nor is Reiki, nor is hypnosis, etc., etc. But what you can do is niche in several ways. So here we have up on the screen the ways that you can niche. Geographical area, so where you practice. Your specialism could be just being a very, very local resource. Now that's my least preferred niche because it's, well, I'll explain it to you later, but I'll give you some examples later of all these niches. Client type, who you work with specifically. The issue, what problem do the clients have? And the outcome, what solution do they want? Now, of course, the tighter you can get and the more of those four combinations makes your niche even tighter, which paradoxically is going to mean more clients for you. Okay, so why are we niching? And what is it that stops people from going somewhere else? Well, the question is, if you think about yourself, you know, do you want to go to a generalist or an expert? Everywhere we look for specialists. We look for experts. We look for people who literally put their stake in the ground and say, this is what I'm great at, and this is the result that you get from working with me. And instant credibility lies in the confidence and conviction to actually declare what you do best, to declare it to yourself and to be a specialist in that. You really do have to decide what your area of specialism is. Now, of course, this means narrowing down from helping everyone to targeting a specific group of people with a specific issue. That's what niching is. And, you know, we really understand that it is quite scary. It is also counterintuitive. You know, you're probably thinking, well, hang on a minute, won't I have fewer clients? You know, we really do get it. And this is the point at which people, you know, can stay stuck, if I'm honest, because, and I am, because they are just not prepared to get over those thoughts that it is a bit scary and that, you know, hang on a second, but there's all these clients over here and round there and round there and round there who I could service. And, you know, you have to get over that. You really, really do. So, you know, when we are given the choice of whether we go, you know, when we are the potential client, we will always choose the person who is the specialist. You know, think of it this way. Imagine you've got a pain in your knee and you go to the doctor and the doctor gives you a choice. Go and see a general consultant or a knee consultant. Now, that decision would be incredibly easy, wouldn't it? And, you know, it's the same with therapy. It really is. If I want to stop smoking, I don't smoke, by the way, but if I did, hypothetically, want to stop smoking, I will start looking for someone to help me. And perhaps I come across a therapist on a directory who has a long list of things that they specialize in. You can go to any directory and you can see hundreds and thousands of therapists who have long lists of things that they allegedly specialize in. And say that person, you know, at the end of their list, it's stopping smoking. And then I click on another therapist who has listed one thing or maybe two, and that's including smoking cessation. Well, who am I going to choose? I want you to just imagine this, just for a moment. Imagine that you hate standing up in front of people and talking. Okay, so you hate presenting. For you, it's the ultimate nightmare and it's been persistent and a pervasive problem for years for you. Now, imagine that a friend of yours, really great friend of yours, has just asked you to, quote, say a few words at their 50th birthday party. And there's going to be probably about 200 people there. You know that you can't refuse, but oh my goodness, you think to yourself, I need help. And by chance, shortly afterwards, you meet two therapists at a party. And the first therapist says this: oh yes, I'm a therapist. I do lots of different work with all sorts of issues that clients bring to me. I've done quite a bit of work with people who didn't like standing up and talking to crowds. And then you meet another therapist who says to you, I specialise in giving people the confidence to stand and speak in front of large groups. I know I can help you. Now, honestly, given those two therapists, who would you choose? Well, it's obvious, isn't it? I'm going to choose the person who looks like a specialist. And I want you to know that you will find that you get far more clients, not fewer, when you focus on one type of client. The trick is to focus on something that you really enjoy and that you know you're particularly good at. So now I want to give you some examples of niches so that you can really get your head around this. Okay, so let's go through these one by one. Therapy in Russian for Russians living in London. This is an actual niche of one of the therapists that has been a student of ours. So this is obviously geographical area and client type. Really brilliant. Erectile dysfunction in wealthy and successful men. Issue and client type. Weight loss for yo-yo dieters. That's an outcome and issue. And you see how, you know, it's not weight loss for everyone. Weight loss is a niche, but a sub-niche for yo-yo dieters. How cool is that? Weight loss for women presenters. That is also an actual niche of one of our clients. Helping empty nesters get their mojo back. Outcome and client type. Freedom from pain for chronic pain sufferers. Outcome and client type. Now, I would personally want to see which type of chronic pain sufferers. You could go even deeper into that niche with, it could be back pain sufferers. It could be people who are suffering chronic pain as a result of stress in their lives. You could put an age bracket around it. Nutrition for people suffering with autoimmune diseases. Overcoming PTSD for ex-soldiers. Overcoming anxiety of exam taking for A-level students. All of these are niches of people that we work with. So hopefully you're beginning to get the picture and starting to think, yeah, what would I do? What would I like to specialize in? So this is another reason to specialize. And so really, can an expert charge more than a generalist? Well, let me give you this example. Imagine that you want to buy a book on time management and you go into the bookshop, you find 3 books. Time management for therapists, and time management for BACP accredited therapists. Now, if you are a BACP accredited therapist, which one of those is worth more to you? Which one would leap off the shelf at you? And I bet you anything you like, if you were that person, you would pay more for that than a general time management book. So the answer is yes, you can certainly charge more if you specialize. It makes your offering much more valuable. So when do you niche? This is really important. If you have only just qualified, we really don't expect that you can suddenly specialist right off the bat. We highly recommend that you work with anyone and everyone so that you get a feel for what you like doing and what you're good at. You'll probably have practiced for a year or so, up to a year or so, before you can confidently choose your niche, unless, of course, you were very, very clear from the start. But even if you have just qualified, I really want you to go through this process and to start to think about possible niches for you. So how do you pick a niche? Well, the first thing is pick something that you're passionate about. The easiest way is obviously to pick something that's close to your heart. You know, revisit your big why. Why did you decide to be a therapist? You know, you decided to be a therapist for a reason. And then, of course, you know, you spend hundreds of hours helping, you know, anyone and everyone, and you lose sight of the real reason that you became a therapist. So just take a minute to tune into your why that we visited, your mission that we visited in the last module. Go where the need is. The ideal scenario is to be able to do what you love with the people that you love. It's not always possible to do that if you are intent on creating a high level of income at the same time. Now, this doesn't mean that you can never work with those people. However, you know, if you are in the early stages of building your therapy business, or at a stage where you really need to be bringing more income in, then you would do well to turn the spotlight on a more lucrative market and make the most of that until you truly have the resources to be able to return to the market you love, which might be less lucrative. You know, that makes sense, doesn't it? You are running a business after all. So what we don't want you to do are these things, because you see a lot of therapists absolutely love working with certain groups of people who just can't sustain their business, and any number of factors can come into play. Perhaps there are too few of those people, and I would actually caution you on that one, because I have never come across a niche that is too tight and too few people. I mean, if you said I want to work with issues in the royal family, I might say there's too few of them. Secondly, they don't have the money. Again, a word of caution, please do not make assumptions that people don't have money. It's very often that your offering is not connecting with them or doesn't have enough value to them that means that they don't buy. It does not necessarily mean they don't have the money. They don't want your service enough, even though they might need it. They're just not used to investing in a solution at all. You know, obviously in this country, the UK, we have the issue to overcome that our healthcare is free. And so sometimes people really need a nudge to get them to value sorting their issue out and paying money for it. Or they're too tough a nut to crack without huge resources being thrown at them. So what we do want to do is these things. If you've got a reasonably clear idea of your target market, here are some questions to ask them. Do the people you love to work with have a need for your services? Do they know that they have a need, and do they acknowledge it? Do they actually want to get rid of their issue? How much do they want your services? Are they willing and ready to pay for them? How much are they willing and ready to pay? Is it enough to make working with them worthwhile for you? And are there enough of them to be able to build a viable business? Okay. You know, sometimes we see people shy away from lucrative and untapped markets because they say, well, I don't really want to work with them. So it's a balance, you know. It's absolutely fine to think that, as long as you get what the consequences are for you and your business. And of course, you know, it's now time to take a breather and sit down and examine your options based on the results of your work so far. And I want you to do this exercise. It's the Therapist's Niche Analyzer, and you'll find a copy of the exercise below the video for you to download. Essentially, the analyzer is a framework for assessing which client group you are likely to profit most from out of all the things that you think you possibly could want to do. Now, all you have to do is download it, follow the instructions, and award points to the various potential client groups that you have in mind. And what you're looking for is patterns. What jumps out at you? What are your insights from this exercise? And all of this should lead you to be able to identify a really good niche for you. And when we do this exercise with clients and formulate their offering with them, 9 times out of 10, people say things to us like, oh my goodness, it was really obvious, I just couldn't see it. Or, wow, this really feels, having done that exercise, that it's going to be easy. And we really hope that you have the same experience with this exercise. So go and download the framework and come back to this when you're done.